Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. My name is Saimah and welcome to Saimah's Experience. In today's video, I'm going to go over the 3 strategies that I quit using for my Turo business. So I'm hoping in this video you will learn from my mistakes and hopefully save yourself some time and money. Now, I just want to give a big thanks to the entire community on this channel. I would be nothing without you guys, and I love the community that we have built. So if you like this video, make sure you hit that like button and show your support by hitting subscribe to this channel so you can watch my videos as they come out weekly. Okay, let's get into it. The number 1 strategy that I've quit using for my Turo business is that I have stopped mostly financing cars, and instead I switched over to leasing vehicles. Now bear with me guys, I do have a little bit of cold, so I'm going to do my best to get through this video as best as I can. Now the reason why I did that, and I'm going to share a big mistake that I made on one of my cars that I'm still paying for today, so I really want you to avoid this. Now my issue, everyone has different strategies, but this is just what I can tell you from doing this for 7 years and hosting thousands of trips, right? My issue with financing cars is that typically a loan for a vehicle that you finance tends to be about 5 to 6 years. Now, as we know, when you run a car on the Turo platform, you accrue miles on that car much faster than the amount of miles you would accrue if you were just using it for your own personal use, which means the car depreciates in value much faster than it normally would. And that means you typically end up in a position to where you have negative equity on that vehicle. What does negative equity mean? It means that you owe more than what your vehicle is worth. So you're underwater on that car. And the only problem with that is that when you try to keep a car on the platform for 5 to 6 years for the length of the loan, you are accruing so many miles, and then you inevitably encounter usually major maintenance issues, which is a huge variable cost and is going to be a major out-of-pocket expense for you because you never know what could go wrong. Now, that's why I went from financing cars to leasing cars majority of the time. I love leases because there is a clear exit strategy out of that car. Typically, you can go into a lease for 2 to 3 years, which is seriously the sweet spot for having a car on the Turo platform. You know when your contract's going to end, you have X amount of miles per year, and you don't have to worry about any negative equity or depreciation because you're simply going to hand that car back in, and then you can get yourself into another vehicle. And the beauty of that is that you can refresh your fleet often and have the latest and greatest cars on there, newer makes and models, which keeps you competitive in the marketplace. Now, I know what many of you guys are thinking. There's a huge gray area when it comes to leases. So I posted a video last week talking about how now brands are offering specific leases where you can legally put those leased vehicles on car sharing or ride sharing platforms such as Turo or Uber, right? So now they do it legally, which is amazing. The industry is finally starting to change. So that makes doing leases much easier for something like the Turo platform. I will link BMW's car sharing, ride sharing lease program down below, and you can take a look at it, or you can click the card above, and that's going to take you to the video where I discuss it in further detail. So that's why I love leasing. Now, let me give you an example of a car that I still have today on the Turo platform that I made a major mistake, and this is how it plays out in real life. So right now, I currently have a 640i BMW listed on the Turo platform. Thankfully, that car does pretty well, but it is a vehicle that I financed. And unfortunately, what happened was, this is in my early days of doing Turo, I had a Corvette that I had financed prior to that BMW. Well, that Corvette started accumulating a lot of miles, started having issues, and so I needed to get out of that car. So what I did was I traded in that Corvette for this BMW instead. Now, the problem was the Corvette had some negative equity in it. And what the BMW dealership did was they rolled that negative equity into the loan of the BMW. This is a major no-no. This is such a huge mistake that you don't want to do. There are very few scenarios where this could work out, and that's only if the vehicle is extremely profitable and has high margins. But nonetheless, this is really risky and you want to stay away from doing something like that, because what happens is, which is happening to me, is now I'm stuck in a position to where I have this vehicle. It's renting well on Turo, but it is getting up there in miles. And I can't exactly sell it because I have too much negative equity in it. Now, I only have a couple years left to go on the loan, and likely the car will survive another few years, but I'm pretty sure a major maintenance issue is just right around the corner, which I've been saving for. Now, my only saving grace right now, and that's only specific to this market, is that resale values on used cars are up by almost 40% because of shortages and stuff. So when I recently ran the value of my BMW through Vroom, I did see that they were offering the most amount of money I've ever seen for this car. So what I can do is go ahead and sell this car, but it is still going to cost me a couple of $1,000s out of pocket to make up for that negative equity. So I could minimize any future risk by selling it now, paying the difference out of pocket, and then just getting into a new vehicle and starting fresh. But that is not always the scenario. We're living in very unusual times, so that's something that you definitely want to stay away from doing because it can be very dangerous. Now, something that is not commonly talked about, but a lot of lenders will finance you up to 110% of the value of the vehicle. So meaning they're giving you an additional 10% in lending that your car is not even worth, right? And that can really get you into a position where you are way underwater because one, they financed you above the loan to value, and two, you are going to be utilizing this car in excess and having a lot of depreciation on it, which is going to make it depreciate even faster than normal. So it just puts you way too upside down and underwater, and I just don't like it. It's messy, right? So it's one of those things that I would highly advise that you stay away from, unless you're like a mechanic or you have access to maintenance and repairs and you can really maintain your cars for the life of the loan. But it becomes really difficult because when things break down and cars have maintenance issues, it does affect the experience of the guest because it's only a matter of time before these things happen while the vehicle is in possession of a renter and they have a bad experience, and then you have to deal with that as a host, and you guys get the gist of it, right? It's no good. So I love leasing for that reason because you get new cars, maintenance is typically included, you turn it back in, wash your hands of it, and get into something new. So for me personally, and I'm just one person, this is the one strategy that I've really loved, and I've stopped financing as much as humanly possible, and I go towards leases as much as possible. So that would be my recommendation. Now, once again, if you're liking this video, make sure you hit that like button, and let's get into number 2. So the number 2 thing that I think that is really important and that I would recommend that you guys do is push towards contactless bookings. Sorry, totally got thrown off for a quick second because I heard somebody outside. So what I started doing is I stopped. Okay, the number 2 strategy that I quit using is meeting my guest in person. Now, obviously this started only because of the pandemic and, everything really being switched over to contactless. But what I came to see is that people actually really love that experience. And most importantly, as a host, it has really, really freed up my time, and it allowed me to grow my fleet and to expand, right? Because it frees up your time. Now, when I first started Turo, I would love meeting my guests, and it's actually something that I still recommend that you do as a new host, given that, of course, it's safe in this climate, right? Meet your guests, talk to them, have conversations with them. What that's going to do for you is help you understand what people are looking for, what do they need to know about your car, what type of questions do they have, what type of adventures are they going on. So this is going to give you some really good real life data that's going to help you then adjust your listing to to those needs, right? And then you can slowly switch over to doing contactless, because what that's going to allow you to do is get your pre-trip messaging down to a science, answering all their questions, getting your FAQ and your listings really clear and concise so that when people get to your car, they have no hesitation about how to utilize it or how everything works. So it's fantastic. But going contactless has been amazing. I think oftentimes people are either running early or they're running late. It's really rare that people are on time. So as a host, it really frees up my time. I don't have to be on location at that specific time. And it also gives your guests some leeway as well. If they're running late, it's no worries, no stress. They can take their time and get there. And you can remotely lock and unlock your cars. You can remotely verify their driver's license. And Turo has just really made the process so easy. And I just love it because I feel like I have more control over my time. I get my cars ready at my own leisure. I drop them off, when I'm free, and then I can carry on about my day and really be more efficient in my business, right? So I used to meet all my guests in person and it would take up all of my time, and now I've been able to switch over to 100% contactless. Now, sometimes there are times where, maybe people aren't very tech savvy. Maybe they don't know how to use the app, or they're not super comfortable with your car and it's their first experience and they want to meet you in person. And that's totally okay. I can make those exceptions, meet those people and help them out. But going contactless by either using remote locking and unlocking through Turo Go or through a app provided by your manufacturer, such as Tesla does this, Chevrolet does this, Ford does this, BMW, Mercedes-Benz. They all have their own apps, which are usually free, and you can remotely lock and unlock your cars. Or maybe you use a lockbox, which also works fantastic. All these things are going to allow you to go contactless. Now, one major thing to remember if you are doing contactless handoffs is the license verification. Turo has a very strict and specific protocol on how to do this, right? And it typically requires 2 photos. One up-close photo of the person's driver's license and a second photo of the person holding the license to their face and taking a selfie so that you can verify both things, right? And you have to make sure you do that before the start of every reservation and before you give them possession of the vehicle. That is absolutely key. So if you are going to make this transition, which I highly recommend, then make sure that you have that system set in place, and that's going to keep you safe from any potential risk when you are going through that check-in process. So remember, contactless check-ins and checkouts really free up your time as a host, and it's actually going to allow you to grow your fleet because then you can manage more without giving up too much of your time. And then the third strategy that I stopped using is, so when people book your car, right, they send you a message or you send them a message, and I would individually type in all my messages all the time. But you know what? Sometimes you get busy, right? Because we all have lives, and maybe you're out to dinner, maybe you're asleep, or whatever it might be. And sometimes you can't get back to that message as quickly as you hoped, or you forget about it, right? And it begins to get tedious when you have to do it for every single reservation, and it becomes really repetitive. So one of the things that I started doing is utilizing pre-canned responses. So basically, messages for pre-check-in and post-trip, I write them all out and I just copy and paste and send them to every reservation that comes in, right? And it includes basic things like a nice welcome message, a thank you for renting your car, letting them know that they're going to have a great experience, letting them know that this car is going to be sanitized, it's going to be washed, and it's going to have a full tank of gas, and then letting them know where the pickup location is, right? And then any additional ID verification that you need for them. So now I have one standard message, welcome message that goes out to everybody, and it typically covers any questions anyone might have. So it really limits the communication and makes it super efficient, and also makes it easier for you as a host to really be running a business that's very efficient, it's very streamlined, and most importantly, it's very consistent, right? And because you only have to write these messages once, you can really go all out and make it a really, happy customer experience focused message, right? That gets people excited, right? And you can even talk about your specific car and what makes it so great and why they're going to enjoy it. And people love that. And then same thing when a trip ends, right? I always send a thank you message. I let them know that, it was a wonderful experience for me to host them. I hope they had a great trip. And when they get a moment, if they can leave me a review about their experience. So this also streamlines your checkout process and it helps you accumulate those great 5-star reviews that you deserve, right? Sometimes you have to remind people. Now, there are a couple ways in which you can do this. You can, just write out some pre-canned responses on your notes app, for example, if you use iPhone, and then a simple copy and paste, or you can use a third-party app like CarSync, and that's going to help you automate that to where you don't even have to do the copy and pasting. I think both options are great, but I think that, you should definitely streamline it because it's going to help keep your response rates up, and it's going to provide a really consistent experience for the renter and for you as the host. And it's just going to make your life a whole lot easier, right? If you can answer all the questions in one message and people don't have too much left to ask you about, then you're doing a good job. And then, of course, any other messages that come in after that, then I will personally respond to them, but it just makes your life so much easier. So these are the 3 strategies that I wanted to go over that I no longer use. I really try not to finance cars. I don't meet my guests in person anymore, and I try to utilize automated responses as much as I possibly can to streamline the customer experience and then to give people kind of that freedom of showing up and picking up cars by doing contactless and freeing up my time. And I love leasing because there's a very clear exit out of the vehicle. Thank you again for tuning in, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video. And once again, if you did like this video, you can show your support by subscribing to my channel. Thanks again, guys, and I look forward to talking to you in the comment section. Thanks again. Take care. Bye.